Now we're going to go after a couple of things that may not have been brought up very often, but we want more puzzles than just the standard ones. We already have two that are ones we would like to adapt further. This one up here called Elements, for instance, is a pretty standard one that you've probably seen lots of little versions. You slide the pieces around, you combine them to make bigger, more complicated pieces. And at a certain point, when you've combined enough of them, you get the chance to clear them from the board. This is all well and good. A lot of games can kill hours doing this sort of thing. Anyways, this is one where I'm thinking we're going to repurpose it to be called Powder Monkey. The goal would be, we'd have little exits on the four sides here. You would combine these into a cannonball, a powder keg, and wadding, and then you'd have them exit out. And once you got a stack of 3 of them, you would get a score. Scoring based on how many moves you have to do, comboing moves together, that sort of thing. Could be a lot of fun and would be an interesting alternative to gunnery. This could either give bonuses to the current gunners, or this could actually allow them to load a cannon, maybe even a bonus cannon, if you stack them in the right order. So if you do a powder, a wadding, and a cannonball in that exact order in that slot, maybe they get a free cannon load. Want it to be challenging enough that players can master it, but not so challenging that they feel frustrated and stymied if they can't quite get it. Again, this is all to our creed of having more than one way to do anything. We don't want it to be so stuck that players feel really frustrated and can't get anything cleared. To that end, there'd be probably a secondary scoring thing where you click the button and you can remove some pieces, get a few light scores, just in case you get jammed up a little bit. Another idea we've had is have these be some sort of crates or rope or gear down below decks, and have cannonballs, powder kegs, and wadding just generate on the board. And as they generate on the board, you could then have to push them out to have them go up to a loader. As they go up to generate on the board, if you get them in the right order, maybe we can do a similar thing. That one seems a little more difficult, and we'd have to see how playable it would be. I've never seen anything quite like it, so it'd be a unique process, one I can't go on YouTube and find something for. We'd have to kind of make it ourselves. But this is actually all thanks to Russ. He made this one out of practically nothing. He's done a few small things like this before, which have turned out, I thought, really amazing. This is one of ours that it doesn't have a place yet, but I feel that it will. Next up in our examples of ones we don't quite have a place for yet, so we haven't been focusing on them a lot since we debuted them a little bit way early in even pre-alpha stuff, is the Steam Machine game. The Steam Machine game was a baby of mine since I wanted it to be a good balancing act. You have your air over here, your heat over here, your water over here, and your coal over here. The idea being, you keep it in the little green zone here with various controls that you can do. And if you keep it in that sort of position, you can do better. You can get a higher score. As you see, the machine changes. It's a little bit like the rigging game, except for unlike the rigging game, this one is all dependent upon having a open pipe somewhere. If you notice, now the pipes are open, so no pieces move in. But that's not so bad, because I already know my next move was going to be fill up the water. You can see it makes a minor impact on the dial here, which has no end or beginning. I was going to have a secondary dial to see if it's going up or down, give you kind of an idea, the speed at which things are going, but that's obviously not happening either. The idea would be you would balance the things you bring in. These pieces here being, of course, junk that doesn't give you any bonuses, but actually brings down a couple of these values. Right now, it's just kind of a little bit of a leftover, something we never quite had a place for. I'm hoping that we'll eventually have a place for it, eventually find something to do with it. If anybody has suggestions, I'm all ears. Because right now, just kind of struggling for ideas of what to do with it. It's also a bit ugly, a bit noisy. As Russ pointed out, there's a lot of interesting stuff happening in the background that really doesn't need to be there. You know, that stuff is too much background detail and not enough foreground detail. He actually went to school for game design, so I try to listen when he tells me things. The other idea would be sort of like a steam train engine, where you have all the various dials. You have your pressure build up here, you want to keep it in that zone. You'd have your heat, your air, how much air you're laying in, the water level. All these things are supposed to be pretty dynamic and moving around, so you have to keep things moving. You have to keep on shoveling the coal. But you don't just need the coal. There'd be also things like on the side a throttle, so you can throttle up or throttle down to determine how quickly things are, or a choke, so you can determine how often you want things to go up or down in there. The best option, of course, is to have a full choke, which allows all of the things to operate as quickly as possible, but you run the risk of either burning up, so you go too hot, and they would have to do an emergency release, you lose your pressure, you kind of go back to sort of like a booch. Or if you're going too much, you can't keep up, you're going to be poor to fine to good range if you're just not having the day you want. I put a lot of effort into this one, and it's not there. It's missing something. It's missing something punchy, something it can do, to get people to really want to play it. Maybe it just needs to be a bigger board. Not quite sure yet. But keep it in mind. Let me know if you have ideas. I'm all ears.